I stood outside the Grand Sterling Hotel, staring at my reflection in the glass doors. The security guard's eyes swept over me with the kind of dismissal usually reserved for spam emails: quick, thorough, and utterly final. My worn leather jacket and simple jeans apparently didn't meet the dress code for my own sister's engagement party. "Service entrance is around back," he said, not even bothering to check his clipboard. I could have corrected him. Could have explained that Samantha Brooks, despite her casual appearance, had every right to walk through those doors. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the seed of an idea already taking root in my mind. "My mistake," I said, turning toward the side alley. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, 32 years old, being directed to the help's entrance while my younger sister Vanessa prepared to celebrate her engagement in a ballroom I'd essentially paid for. Not that anyone knew that yet. The service corridor smelled like industrial cleaner and expensive food. Kitchen staff rushed past carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. A harried sous chef nearly collided with me, apologizing without really seeing me. I'd become invisible the moment I stepped through that side door. Perfect. I made my way through the maze of service hallways until I found a quiet alcove near the ballroom entrance. From here, I could hear the party beginning, the gentle murmur of arriving guests, the clink of champagne glasses, my mother's affected laugh that she only used around people she wanted to impress. My phone buzzed. "Ryan Hall, the hotel manager. Everything's set up as discussed. Are you sure about this?" I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. Just wait for my signal." Ryan and I had met 6 months ago when I'd first started planning this. Let's call it an intervention. He'd been professional, discreet, and most importantly, he understood that sometimes family needed a wake-up call delivered with the subtlety of a spotlight and a megaphone. Peering around the corner, I caught my first glimpse of the ballroom. Vanessa had outdone herself. Or rather, she'd outdone herself with resources that weren't entirely hers to use. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across white tablecloths. Massive LED screens flanked the stage, currently displaying a montage of photos. Vanessa and her fiancé Derek on various vacations, at charity galas, living their best Instagram life. What the screens didn't show was how those vacations had been funded, how the charity gala invitations had come through connections I'd built, how the designer dress Vanessa wore in half those photos had come from my own collection, borrowed and never returned. I'd spent the last 8 years building my fashion design business from nothing. Late nights hunched over a sewing machine in my tiny apartment had evolved into a recognized brand. SB Designs, with clients across 3 continents. Magazine features, celebrity endorsements, a reputation for quality and innovation that I'd earned through exhaustion and determination. And somehow, in my family's eyes, I was still the struggling older sister who played with fabrics, while Vanessa, with her marketing degree and entry-level corporate job, was the successful one. "Samantha," my mother's voice cut through my thoughts. She'd spotted me lingering in the doorway, and her expression was a masterclass in controlled horror. She rushed over, her evening gown swishing with urgency. "What are you wearing? I told you this was a formal event. And why are you sneaking around the service areas?" "The security guard directed me here," I said simply. Apparently, I didn't look like I belonged with the other guests. My mother's face tightened. For a moment, I thought she might actually defend me. Instead, she glanced back at the ballroom, calculating. "Well, you're here now. Try not to draw attention to yourself. This is Vanessa's night, and the Montgomerys, Derek's family, are very particular about appearances." "I'll do my best to be invisible," I said, meaning it more than she knew. She hurried back to her hosting duties, leaving me to slip into the ballroom. I chose a seat toward the back, partially obscured by an elaborate flower arrangement. From here, I had a clear view of the main table where Vanessa held court with Derek and both sets of parents. My sister looked beautiful. She always did. Her honey blonde hair was styled in elegant waves, her makeup flawless. The dress she wore was one of mine, of course, from my spring collection. She'd asked to borrow it 3 months ago for a photo shoot and had somehow forgotten to return it. Just like she'd forgotten to return the designer handbag I'd received as a gift from a client, and the vintage bracelet I'd bought at an estate sale, and apparently my professional reputation, which she'd been casually claiming as partially hers during networking events. I'd learned about that last part from a mutual acquaintance who'd been confused about our business relationship. Your sister said you two were partners, she told me over coffee, that the SB Design success was a family venture. That's when I'd started really paying attention. That's when I discovered that Vanessa had been using my connections to secure sponsorships for her engagement party, that she'd negotiated discounts with vendors by implying she represented my brand, that she'd essentially built this entire celebration on the foundation of my work while positioning herself as the architect. My parents had gone along with it, of course. They'd always had a peculiar blindness when it came to Vanessa. When I tried to discuss it with them, my father had patted my hand and said, "You know your sister looks up to you. Can't you just be supportive? This is an important time for her." An important time funded by my contacts, my reputation, and my assets. The party continued around me. Guests air-kissed and networked. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and canapes. Derek's father gave a toast about the joining of two families, though he looked vaguely uncomfortable, as if he wasn't entirely sure what the Brooks family brought to the table beyond a talented younger daughter. If only he knew. Vanessa took the microphone, her voice sugary sweet. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. This party wouldn't have been possible without the love and support of our families." She gestured to our parents, who beamed. And of course, the amazing vendors who made this night so special, many of whom came through family connections and really understood our vision. Family connections, my vendors. People I'd worked with for years, who'd given Vanessa preferential treatment because she'd implied we were business partners. She continued, "Tonight is about celebration, but it's also about new beginnings. Derek and I are so excited to announce that we'll be launching our own lifestyle brand soon." My attention sharpened. What? Combining Derek's business expertise with the fashion and design background I've developed over the years. We're calling it VD Luxe, and we can't wait to share it with all of you. The applause was enthusiastic. I sat frozen in my chair. They were launching a competing brand, using the industry connections I'd introduced Vanessa to, using the reputation she'd built by association with me. And based on the knowing looks some guests exchanged, they'd been planning this for months. My phone buzzed again. "Ryan, they're using your vendor contracts for the brand launch. I found the paperwork. They filed the LLC last week." Something cold and clear settled over me. This wasn't just borrowing a dress or exaggerating her role in my success. This was calculated. This was theft. I texted back, "Change of plans. I'm going to need everything we discussed, plus the copies of the vendor contracts and LLC filing. Can you have them ready in 10 minutes? Already on it. The LED screens are queued up and ready." I stood and made my way toward the front of the room. Several people glanced at me, their expressions ranging from curious to dismissive. I was still in my leather jacket and jeans, still looking like I'd wandered in from the wrong party. Vanessa saw me approaching, and her smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "Samantha, I'm so glad you could make it. Everyone, this is my older sister." The way she said older sister carried a subtle weight, slightly pitying, slightly condescending. The successful younger sibling acknowledging the less fortunate elder, I smiled back. "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Congratulations on the engagement. And on the new business venture. VD Luxe, was it?" "Yes." Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, which somehow made it worse. "We're so excited. I've learned so much about the industry over the years, and Derek has such a brilliant business mind. We're going to do amazing things." "I'm sure you are," I said, then turning to the room. "Actually, while I have everyone's attention, there's something I'd like to share." My mother stood up, alarmed. "Samantha, this isn't really the time." "It's the perfect time," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. I sent a quick text to Ryan. Now, the LED screens flickered and changed. The romantic montage of Vanessa and Derek disappeared, replaced by something else entirely. My company logo, SB Designs, below it a scrolling list of achievements, magazine features, client testimonials, celebrity endorsements, revenue figures that made several people gasp. "For those who don't know me well," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet ballroom, "I'm Samantha Brooks, founder and sole owner of SB Designs. I've spent the last 8 years building this brand from nothing." The screens changed again, showing photos of my studio, my design process, news articles about my success. Several guests were pulling out their phones, clearly Googling me in real time. I watched their expressions shift from confusion to recognition. "That's lovely, dear," my father said weakly. "But perhaps we could discuss this another time?" "No, I think we need to discuss it now," I said. Especially since my sister just announced plans to launch a competing brand using the industry connections I introduced her to. Vanessa's face went pale. "That's not, we were planning to—" "The screens, please, Ryan." New images appeared. Email exchanges between Vanessa and my vendors, where she'd implied we were business partners. Text messages where she'd offered SB Designs discounts without my authorization. Photos of her wearing my designs and claiming she'd contributed to the creative process. And then, the final piece. The LLC filing for VD Lux, listing vendors and contacts that were exclusively from my business network. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. "Samantha." My mother's voice was sharp now, embarrassed. "What are you doing?" "I'm correcting the record," I said. "For years, I've watched Vanessa borrow my things and forget to return them, use my connections, and take credit for my work. I told myself it was just sisterly sharing, that I was being supportive. But this," I gestured to the screens, "this isn't sharing. This is theft." Derek stood up, looking genuinely shocked. "Vanessa, what is she talking about? You said those vendors were family friends." "They are," Vanessa protested. Samantha introduced me. "But I built those relationships using my reputation," I said, "implying you were my business partner, negotiating discounts and sponsorships for this party by suggesting it would provide exposure for SB Designs, without ever asking me." More images appeared on the screens, contracts for tonight's venue, catering, flowers, photography, all negotiated at steep discounts under the implication that this was an SB Designs affiliated event. Invoices that Vanessa had promised would be handled through the business account. My business account. Ryan appeared beside me, handing me a folder. "Everything you asked for," he said quietly. I opened it, showing the first page to the room. "This is the actual contract for tonight's venue, the Grand Sterling Hotel where we're currently standing." Vanessa negotiated a 40% discount by claiming this was a business event for SB Designs, which would provide marketing value to the hotel. I turned to my sister, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Did you think I wouldn't find out, or did you just assume I wouldn't care?" "It's not like that," she said, her voice small. "I was going to tell you. I thought we could work together, that VD Lux could be like a sister brand. You filed the LLC last week without mentioning it to me once. You've been planning this for months, using my contacts, my reputation, my work, all while letting Mom and Dad think you were the successful one." My parents had the grace to look uncomfortable. Several guests were whispering now, and I could see phones being discreetly aimed at the screens, recording everything. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "Ryan, could you bring out the next set of documents?" He returned with another folder, this one thicker. I held it up for everyone to see. "These are cease and desist letters for every vendor Vanessa contacted using my name or brand. They've all been informed that she has no authority to negotiate on behalf of SB Designs, and that any agreements made under that pretense are void." Vanessa made a small, broken sound. "This," I continued, pulling out another document, "is a bill for tonight's party, the actual bill without the discounts that were fraudulently obtained. It comes to approximately $240,000. The number rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. "And this," I said, showing the final page, "is a contract transferring ownership of the VD Lux LLC to me, along with any associated assets, trademarks, or business plans. It's already been signed by Vanessa, or rather, it will be if she wants to avoid a lawsuit for fraud, identity theft, and breach of fiduciary duty." My mother stood up, her face red. "You can't do this to your sister. This is her engagement party." "That she funded with my money, my connections, and my reputation," I said. "Mom, Dad, I love you. But you've let Vanessa get away with treating my career like a community resource pool. You've made excuses, minimized my concerns, and celebrated her achievements while ignoring that they were built on my work." My father opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no defense. I turned back to Vanessa, who was crying now, mascara running down her perfect cheeks. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. I'm doing this because you need to understand that actions have consequences. You can't build success on someone else's foundation and expect it to hold. Derek was staring at his fiancée like he'd never seen her before. Is this true? All of it? Vanessa nodded, unable to speak. I don't understand, he said. Why would you? We could have built something legitimate. I have my own connections, my own resources. Because she wanted to be me, I said quietly. Or at least the version of me that our parents celebrated. The successful one, the impressive one, the one worth paying attention to. The screens changed one final time, showing a split image. On one side, a photo of me at 19 in my tiny first apartment with my grandmother's old sewing machine. On the other side, my current studio, spacious, professional, filled with cutting-edge equipment and a team of talented designers. This is what 8 years of work looks like, I said to the room. Late nights, rejected designs, failed pitches, slowly building a reputation through quality and integrity. There are no shortcuts, and there are no free passes, not even for family. I set the folder on the table in front of Vanessa. You have until Monday to sign the transfer documents and arrange payment for tonight's party. I'll accept a payment plan if necessary. I'm not trying to bankrupt you, but the VD Lux brand and any associated business plans become mine. You and Derek are welcome to start something new, something legitimate, using your own connections and reputation. She looked up at me, her eyes red and pleading. Sam, please. I'm sorry, I didn't think. That's the problem, I said gently. You didn't think. You didn't think about how hard I worked. You didn't think about the consequences. You just saw an opportunity and took it. I turned to address the room one last time. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Despite the drama, I do hope you'll celebrate Vanessa and Derek's engagement. They're good people who made bad choices. We all do sometimes. I started walking toward the exit, then paused. Oh, and for anyone interested in legitimate business partnerships or collaborations with SB Designs, my contact information is on the screens. We're always open to working with people who value integrity and respect. Ryan followed me out, and we didn't speak until we reached the hotel lobby. Then I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. That was either the bravest or craziest thing I've ever witnessed, he said. Probably both, I admitted. My hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Did I just nuke my entire family relationship? You stood up for yourself, he said. Sometimes that requires explosions. My phone started buzzing, texts, calls, messages flooding in. Some from guests at the party, some from business contacts who'd apparently heard already. The fashion world moved fast. One message stood out. From Derek. We need to talk, not tonight, but soon. I had no idea about any of this. I'm so sorry. Another from my mother. How could you humiliate your sister like this? And finally, from Vanessa. I know you'll never forgive me, but you're right. About all of it, I'm sorry. I turned off my phone and looked at Ryan. I need a drink. The hotel bar is still open, he said. And after tonight, I think you've earned carte blanche on whatever you want. We sat in the dimly lit bar, and I ordered an old-fashioned while Ryan pulled up a tablet to show me the social media explosion that was already happening. Someone had live-streamed parts of my confrontation. Fashion blogs were already running headlines. Designer exposes sister's fraud at engagement party. SB Designs founder takes stand against family exploitation. You're going to wake up famous tomorrow, Ryan said. Well, more famous. Great, I muttered. That's exactly what I wanted. But as I scrolled through the messages and comments, I noticed something. Mixed in with the scandal seekers and gossip mongers were genuine messages of support. Other entrepreneurs sharing their own stories of being underestimated or taken advantage of by family. Business owners who'd had their work stolen or minimized. People who understood. One message from a designer I'd long admired, what you did took guts. The fashion industry needs more people willing to stand up for their work and their worth. Respect. Maybe this wasn't just about Vanessa. Maybe it was about every talented person who'd been treated as less than because they weren't loud enough, showy enough, or willing to step on others to get ahead. My phone rang. I turned it back on despite my earlier resolution. My father. "Dad," I answered. "Samantha." His voice was heavy. "I owe you an apology." I waited. "Your mother and we made excuses for Vanessa because she was younger, because she seemed to need more support. We didn't realize we were enabling her to take advantage of you. We certainly didn't know about the business venture or how she'd been using your connections." "But you knew she was taking credit for my work," I said. "You knew, and you told me to be supportive." Silence. Then, "Yes, we did, and that was wrong." It wasn't enough, but it was a start. "I love Vanessa," I said, "but I can't keep sacrificing myself to make her feel successful. I can't keep being invisible so she can shine." "I understand," he said. "For what it's worth, what you built, SB Designs, your reputation, your success, you did that entirely on your own. Your mother and I failed to recognize it properly. We failed to protect you, and I'm sorry." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet bar, nursing my drink. Ryan had discreetly moved to another table, giving me space. The truth was, I'd been planning this confrontation for months. Every detail carefully arranged, every piece of evidence meticulously gathered. I could have handled it privately, could have confronted Vanessa one-on-one and demanded she stop. But that wouldn't have solved the real problem. The real problem was that my family, and by extension, everyone in my life, needed to see that the quiet older sister who didn't demand attention was actually the one writing the rules. That success didn't require loudness or manipulation. That integrity mattered more than appearances, and sometimes the only way to be seen was to step into the spotlight and refuse to be invisible anymore. 3 months later, I sat in my expanded studio, reviewing designs for the fall collection. Vanessa had signed the transfer documents and was making monthly payments on the party bill. VD Lux had been dissolved, its assets and business plans now filed away in my archives. A reminder of what not to do. Derek had broken off the engagement, not because of the scandal, but because, as he told me during a surprisingly honest conversation, I fell in love with a person who didn't exist. The real Vanessa is going to need time to figure out who she actually is. Vanessa was in therapy. We'd had coffee twice, awkward affairs where we danced around the elephant in the room before finally addressing it. She was working as a junior marketing coordinator at a small firm, using her actual degree and her own connections this time. "I was jealous," she'd admitted during our second meeting. "You made it look so easy. You were talented and driven, and I felt like I was always chasing something I could never catch. So I took shortcuts." "Shortcuts always have a cost," I'd said. "I know that now. My parents and I were still rebuilding trust, but they'd made genuine efforts. They'd attended my latest fashion show and met my team. They'd seen the scope of what I'd built and finally truly understood that I wasn't just playing with fabrics." The security guard from the Grand Sterling, his name was Marcus, had written me a letter of apology. I'd written back, telling him he was just doing his job, but that maybe there was a lesson in not judging people by their clothes. He'd asked if he could use that line in his security training sessions. I'd said yes. As for me, I'd learned something important. You can love your family and still set boundaries. You can be generous and still demand respect. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step into the light and show the world exactly who you are, not who they assumed you to be. My phone buzzed with a new message. "Ryan, another hotel owner wants to discuss event partnerships. I told them you'd get back to them next week. You're in demand." I smiled, typing back, "Tell them I'm interested, but only if they promise not to let anyone direct me to the service entrance. I think we can arrange that." I set down my phone and returned to my designs. Outside my studio windows, New York City hummed with energy and possibility. I'd built something real here, something that couldn't be borrowed or stolen or diminished by anyone else's insecurity. And I'd done it by being exactly who I was. Patient, determined, and ultimately unwilling to remain invisible. The designer they underestimated had become impossible to ignore. And honestly, that was the best revenge of all.